As an international human rights organization, we have an obligation to challenge the systems that called for the creation of UUSC in the first place. Those systems include white supremacy, patriarchy, colonialism, genocide, and gendered, racialized, extractive capitalism. Because human rights abuses can invariably be traced to one or more of these systems and the worldviews on which they were built, replacing them with just, equitable, regenerative alternatives is the key to preventing the human rights abuses of the future. At UUSC, we achieve this by supporting grassroots movements and activists who are already doing this work on the front lines. We have learned that supporting the systemic change work of grassroots movement means facilitating their access to decision-making processes, creating connections between and among them, providing flexible and responsive support, following the leadership of those most impacted by injustice, leveraging all of our resources to go beyond the grant dollar, dismantling and replacing harmful laws, policies, and narratives, and supporting grassroots solutions that challenge oppressive systems. This past year brought challenges that few of us could have imagined. During the pandemic, the effects of the virus fell hardest on those already deprived of resources, compounding the human rights violations our partners confront every day. This was true across all the areas of our work. And yet, with your help, UUSC stayed the course and continued to support our partners' work while staying true to these principles.
In Burma and Southeast Asia, Rohingya refugees displaced by genocide felt the effects of disruptions in international aid and other economic fallout from the virus. UUSC worked with our long-term partners to redirect funds where they were most needed. We also made emergency grants to help grassroots Rohingya partners respond to community requests for food, personal protective gear, and to advocate for improved government policies. UUSC also created a discussion and action guide to accompany the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum's recent exhibition, Burma's Path to Genocide. We hosted a public panel with museum experts and a Rohingya human rights activist to help our members and the public confront genocide in a modern context.
In our migrant
justice program, our partners' years of community work developing alternatives to dominant economic and political systems was critical this year. In the wake of the pandemic and the economic disruption it entailed, migrating people faced new threats to food security and access to other basic resources. In response, many of our partners either expanded existing food assistance programs or started new ones. UUSC provided support to our Central American and Mexican partners as they organized these immediate-term responses to COVID's impact in their communities. On top of the COVID crisis, our Central American partners were also central in responding to the devastating impacts of two back-to-back hurricanes, Eta and Iota, which devastated the region last November. Because government assistance programs in Central America are often insufficient or driven by patronage, particularly in the wake of natural disasters, our partners have had to develop alternative systems rooted in autonomy, sustainability, gender equity, and anti-corruption.
It is critical that we change the narrative of migration in this country in order to center the human rights of people forced to leave their homes. Climate change is already contributing to human mobility around the globe, and climate-forced displacement will only increase in the coming decades. That is why UUSC has worked for years with climate-affected communities on the front lines of this crisis as they seek to adopt and relocate in a self-determined way and to establish a rights-based framework to protect the rights of communities affected by climate destruction. To advance this goal, UUSC co-convened a legal justice coalition with longtime partners and community leaders from the Gulf of Mexico and Alaska. Together, we released the first of its kind policy document directed to the new Biden-Harris administration, offering a roadmap for how to address climate-forced displacement in ways that respect communities' right to self-determination. Our coalition also prepared a statement and webinar to bring these demands to the attention of world leaders in response to President Biden's Leaders Summit on Climate held during Earth Week 2021.
In this area of our work, just as in all of the others, the global pandemic has compounded existing human rights crises, worsening access to sanitation, clean water, health care, and other basic rights for communities around the globe. We see once again that the challenges humanity faces are deeply intertwined. Climate crisis, displacement, global pandemic, violence, genocide, all are rooted in systems that prioritize profit and power over the well-being and continuity of the human family. To address these crises, there is only one way forward, and that is to partner with those who live and work at these intersections of injustice, confronting unjust power and working to build a new way. Responding to these unprecedented times, UUSC's board voted overwhelmingly this year to draw on reserves to provide supplemental support for our partners and the communities they serve. We couldn't do this work without them, and we can't do this work without you. We invite you to join us. Thank you for your support and for helping to create systemic change around the globe.